Right now, thousands of people die every year because they can't get a kidney. And donating a kidney is not particularly risky for the person donating it. And the system we have now, which is looking for voluntary transactions, is not working. People are not donating enough kidneys to save everybody who needs one. So I have no problem with people developing a market for kidneys.
We have so much inequality in our society. I think people would feel differently if everybody had the same income. Now you say, okay, everybody's the same income. I'm exposing myself to a greater risk. Should the individual who is willing to accept that risk be compensated for exposing himself to that greater risk in return for giving somebody else the right to live?
And you would say maybe so if the background conditions of the society are more or less equal.
That's right.
And the reason that matters is that you think against background conditions of inequality, there's coercion really operating. It's not a truly voluntary.
It's not a truly voluntary. If it's a matter of that person's family living,
right?
You know, if he doesn't sell that kidney, they may die in starvation.
Right.
And that's a kind of coercion.
I wouldn't call it coercion. What I'd call it is it limits your choices. It may also limit your choices in ways that makes it harder to make rational choices for some people. But I'm not even completely sure of. I think poor people can be rational people as well.
And by rational choice, you mean?
Acting in their own interest, doing what's best for them given the circumstances they have. We should worry about poverty, income inequality directly and not say, gosh, because we're worried about poverty, we're not going to let this poor person sell his kidney and we'll let this person who needs a kidney die, because it doesn't help the poor person. He's still poor. Certainly doesn't help the person who needs the kidney. He's dead. That seems like a very strange response to me to dealing with income inequality.
Just because there's a voluntary transaction doesn't mean it's in the interest of society. Whether any particular set of transactions goes to the sense of what is it that defines the community, what are their values. I think most communities would say the right to live is a fundamental right.
And I think that constitutes a kind of choice that person is selling like a literal part of their body because that's all that they can do to survive. And I think that there is something unsavory about that.
Unsavory, coercive, exploitative?
Yeah, but on the other hand, you want people to be able to subsist in any way that they can. So
where do you come down?
I think you shouldn't have to sell it, but that's an argument for kind of raising everybody's standards of living enough that nobody would want to sell their kidney or need to sell their kidney in general.
Do you think that anyone who sells a kidney out of economic necessity is not really acting freely?
Yeah, I think probably
I'm sensitive to that as well.
They're not really acting freely. Yeah.
Does everybody agree with that, or does some disagree with that?
I disagree. We see people selling their health for cash in tons of industries. I mean, a coal mine, I understand that if I go in there, I'm going to receive high wages in return for sacrificing my health. The National Football League, I mean, I'm going to die likely 20 years younger because I'm playing professional football and my head's getting bashed around. But with understanding of that, I'm willing to sell my health. I think that's a very similar dilemma to giving a kidney, whereas I'm basically just willing to receive payment to give up some of my health.
Do you think in those analogous cases, it's morally unobjectionable for people to sell, as you put it, sell their health?
I do think it's unobjectionable.
And why should we be able to sell our health?
I think I'm entitled to how I take care of my own body. And I think if I have an awareness that I will improve my welfare by selling my health because some other aspect of my life requires funds. For example, if I can't afford food, but selling this will allow me to eat, then I think there are plenty of examples where I'm entitled to sell it.
Let me play out the logic of this, James.
Please.
Let's suppose I'm a poor peasant in the developing world. What will most improve my welfare will be to send my 2 children to get an education, which I can't afford, to provide for the first. Then a few years later, my second child needs to go to school, and the same broker comes around, or maybe I call him, and I say, I'll sell you my second kidney. In other words, committing suicide. But it's my body, my health, my sense of what's important. Should I have a right to do that?
No. I think when it comes to directly ending your life, or even if not directly, but indirectly ending your life, and it's next to certain, then no, I don't think you should have the right to sell your death.
But selling my health is okay.
Yes.
Erica?
This is kind of like a one-to-one trade-off in lives, whereas with the kidney example, we're saving 2 lives.
That's right. Thinking of the recipients, never mind the kids who get an education. So what conclusion do you draw from that?
Well, I would say that in terms of like number of lives saved, these seem like equivalent scenarios. And so I do think there's room for the kind of arguments about whether we have a right to end our own lives.
Well,
because
1 life is lost, 2 lives are saved, and 2 kids get an education. So what do you say, Erica?
So I'd come back to this question of freedom of choice. It seems suspect that someone would freely and with full information give up their own life. But if it were possible to do so, I wouldn't have a problem.
You would not have a problem. And you think ethically, if the utilitarian calculus, which you've been emphasizing, works out this way, which it very well might in this case, you would support that.
So it seems like practically unlikely because of these concerns about consent.
But if what you're concerned with is utility, why worry about the consent? Lives saved, education for these 2 kids. So why does consent override utility in this case?
I'm not sure. I don't have
You
an
can
answer
call
for
a
you.
friend if you want.
Lindsay?
I was going to disagree with the principle because I don't believe that losses to some can be made up by gains to others, especially if there's a life involved here. And in practice, I would disagree with it as well because I feel like there would have to be a really high degree of coercion involved here because he can't afford to send his 2 kids to school, and thus his judgment is clouded by these concerns and concerns
Well, wait a
for
minute.
his.
Why do you say clouded? Why not say informed by the concern and the commitment for his kids' education?
Because I don't believe that he would make the same decision with different financial means. And this is a decision that is detrimental to him, so I would argue clouded.